What's going on? Yes, here, aka Big Dumper, back with another video. Today, just going to be doing a quick hand review. So I got two spots that I'm going to look at. One we're going to glance at. It's both single raise pots, and the second one. Let me adjust my mic here. The second one is going to be a special hand where we will be using MDA Demon, which is a tool, like a web-based tool that a couple of people that I know through poker have made, and we are beta testing it, and we'll be using it for this spot specifically. So I've used that in combination with GTO Wizard AI to do like a more in-depth analysis of the hand. If you hear any droning in the background, that's a space heater. Right now in Texas, it's like, below freezing. So I got the space heaters cranking, trying to stay warm. I got my dogs here. Yeah, just trying not to have any pipes burst at my house or anything crazy happen. So anyway, let's get to the hand. This first spot here, we open. Oh, that's the second spot. Whoops. This is the first spot. We open the low jack. We min open the low jack with king 8 of spades. Action folds to the big blind, and they defend. We get the ace of spades, queen of diamonds, 10 of hearts flop, and our opponent checks. This right here is, we'll go through the hand first, and I'll just tell you my thought process before we start looking at the solution. But this right here is a range bet for me. I'm sure you could play a mixed strategy, but if you're playing one size, I probably prefer quarter pot or something like that. You could go larger too, but definitely have to be a little bit careful, being that the big blind has plenty of straights to defend with, and also tens, and I think from these positions has to mix some pocket queens as a call, which is weird. I might be wrong about that. I haven't looked at pre-flop in quite some time. So low jack checks. We are range betting quarter pot. Our opponent calls, and we get the 3 of spades turn. So this is going to be a pure barrel for me. It's just a matter of like what size you want to barrel for. I think small overbet is fine. I think like anything up to B150 would be what I'd play. B150 or check. And I don't think there would be much reason to play a smaller size. Maybe, like being in position here, like my opponent's supposed to check raise quite this is maybe something we should factor in later in the analysis, is like the flop should be getting check raised at least sometimes. I'm not completely familiar with these positions, but button versus big blind, definitely playing a lot of check raises as the out of position player. And here I imagine it's similar. So maybe my opponent's more unfiltered headed to the turn. So you should be a little bit more careful. However, I think this hand, no matter what, always a pure barrel. And I can't remember exactly what size I played here. It looks like I went, that's pretty large. This is like B150. And my opponent calls. And now we have a river decision of whether or not to bluff. So my thought process here is, one, whether or not my opponent is like just the player profile, right? Like, is this player a station, or is this player, a little bit more passive, and what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe they fold a little bit too often. Conservative. So I think after turn, right? Like when I go so large on the turn, their range is really heavily filtered. And if it's not, it's like, the range they get to the river with is sort of inelastic at this point. Like I could go all in or like not really in theory, right? But it's inelastic to bet sizes. So that was sort of the thing I was factoring in. Another thing that I factored in is that this is this is an unknown player to me, like in the hand, but it was potentially a weaker player, so like a recreational player. And I think that they tend to be a little bit more inelastic in these spots as well, like after calling a turn over bet in this line. So with those things in mind, my hand felt to me like it was indifferent between bluffing and checking back, mainly because like you arrive to the river with a lot of king x, you're going to arrive to the river with like a lot of jack x as well, like maybe like jack 8 suited. It's jack 8 suited open. No, it doesn't. Yeah, maybe not so much jack x. You have like jack 9, but you do have a lot of king x. So you have like king 8, king 7, king 6, king 5 at some frequency. You're gonna have a lot of like you might want to bluff like pocket jacks here. Jack 10 might be a nice bluff. Jack 9 still might bluff the river. King 9 is gonna bluff the river as well. King 10, another hand that may bluff. So you have to be sort of careful that even though you have good removal to the straight, it's easy to overdo it with all these combos. So with that being said, I decide to check this back, and we lose to ace diamonds, 4 spades. So this hand to me in game felt like it would be doing a lot of folding on the turn. Like if not, folding almost all the time. And I've pulled up the spot and run the GTO AI solution for it so that we could do like a little bit of an analysis. Let me click through to the flop here so that we can go ahead and look at what the big blind defense is on the flop. So here we are. All right, so this is the configuration. We have UTG versus big blind, single raise pot. Out of position checks. We're range betting. This is 24% pot size. I think I maybe this is like a typo or something that I've like put in the 24% size. Anyway, it's range bet, so we go ahead and bet, and our opponent is not playing any raises. So this is not something I really considered in game as much. I figured like, all right, well, like they're unfiltered on the flop because they're not raising as much. But if they're not even supposed to play raises, then like they should be arriving with like the same sort of ranges in theory on the turn and then on the river as well, right? So we've bet, and then our opponent's called, as they should do with their entire range. And we arrive on the 3 of spades turn. We see a check from out of position, and then we're playing this B100 size. That's the size that this solution chose, but I'm going to go ahead and put in B150 because that's roughly what we bet in game. And I'm going to check if there's like substantial EV loss with something like this as well. So let me see. Yeah, so you do lose some EV like compared to like using a B100 size. I wonder why that is. Like maybe you're not allowed to go as thin. Can I compare? Let's go ahead and compare like the strategy with certain hand classes. So yeah, you're doing less betting with sets. You're not allowed to do as much betting with 2-pair or top pair, right? Like you can't bet any top pair. So you lose a lot of value. Like you lose a lot of money with this portion of your range. And you might make some more with straights, but like, the top pair portion might want to bet, especially if you have like a gut shot to go along with it, stuff like that. 2-pair as well. It's the same idea. That said, you don't have to bet as much with the B150 size or get called as much with the B150 size because you're going to be making more when you do bet. But I'm sure it's considering all the lines, all the potential like actions when it's calculating this type of stuff. So anyway, we go ahead and bet 150 and our opponent calls. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and eliminate this raise because I don't think players are using any sort of raise, and I would like them to arrive at the river unfiltered as well. So that's one of the issues with this like B small B150 line is like you don't face a lot of check raises. So you do have a little bit more realization with certain hands, but you need to be more careful when you get to the river, which was a 9 of diamonds, because your opponent is less filtered, and they're certainly not playing any donks. That's at least my assumption, and I'm sure a lot of you would make the same assumption as well. And we see that, okay, our hand is doing quite a bit of betting. So, like, seems close, like a fraction of a big blind, really small percentage of the pot at this point in the hand. But, yeah, like I wouldn't be able to tell you which hand is better to bet than, which combo is better to bet, etc. Like pocket eights here, or like king eight here, sorry. Seems like pretty much the same to me as like king seven or king six. Like maybe there's some slight removal difference. I'm not exactly sure. I think maybe it blocks more straights that come in for the out of position player. So it might be nicer to bet. But it's kind of hard to say. Yeah, so we go ahead and check back. I think checking back is quite close. We see jacks bluffing as well. Pocket kings deciding not to bluff. Not really using an all-in size, just using this B100, which I thought was interesting. Jack 9 suited is bluffing. Jack 10 suited is bluffing. We have some king 10 that's going to bluff as well. And then, yeah. So these are, the things I was thinking about in game, which is nice to think, to, see, or, it just validates my thought process. But I don't know. You guys will have to let me know if you'd pull the trigger here on the river. So anyway, we will move on to the next hand. And in this hand, we are facing a big blind, or a button open to 2.5, and we're defending the big blind with a 7 of hearts. We get the 10, 7, 3 monotone, all diamonds. We check, and our opponent checks back. We're going to freeze the hand here, and we're going to go over to MDA Demon. This is the web-based application that a couple of my buddies from poker have made, or that they've been working on. So let's go take a look at what we have going on and what the tendencies are for our opponent should be, right? So here we have data sets that we can look at. So I've compared the GG Reg 50NL data set to the GG Went to Showdown bots data set. The Went to Showdown hands, I think it's slightly different. So like I don't want to get too much into MDA, but like a lot of like bot hands don't get to Showdown, and you kind of have to factor that into your data when you're looking at frequencies, etc. So I'm going to look at the Went to Showdown data, which is recommended by whoever to look at this, but I'm also going to compare with the 50NL data. Even though we're playing 100, 50 is like, especially on GG, I think it's comparable to the player pool that I'm up against. So we'll look at button versus big blind, single raise pot, and then our opponent is the pre-flop raiser, and on the flop they've checked back. So here we can see their decision to check. So we'll go ahead here and click check. And, whoops, let me clear this. Go 10, 7, 3. And this will give us information on monotone boards. So based on this range composition and data, we see that they're checking back slightly less than they should be. And they're betting a little bit too often. And their check back range composition includes a little bit too much nothing burger, and also not enough 2-pair plus. So these are things that I've factored in when running the GTO AI solution and doing some node locking. And we see that like the overall so this is the like overall range composition across like all flops in this spot, and we see it's like a similar type of pattern, right? Like monotone is basically being played similarly to like other board types, where our opponent is going to be checking back a little bit too much nothing, and betting or continue c-betting with a little bit too much of the top portion of the range. So if we go over here, we can go ahead and look at what I've done in the simulation. So we'll do a range comparison with the initial, that's it. It looks like it, right? Yeah. So as you can see here, like the betting frequency for the node lock solution is slightly higher than what the initial solution was. So basically what I've gone and done is I've increased like the top of the range hands. So if we go look at, we could look at equity buckets or whatever, even just, yeah, I guess this is probably the best way to do it. They're betting a little bit too much with the best hands, and then trash hands are getting checked back slightly more. And this really impacts what your decision is going to be on the turn. So our opponent checks, we see the 4 of hearts, and this is the strategy that we would play. So if I were to go here and take a look at what the typical strategy should be for a board like this, check, 4 of hearts. This would be the probing strategy at equilibrium, or whatever solution this is. And we see we're using a much smaller size because the imposition range is a little bit more protected. And we're betting a little bit more, but also like the betting volume has gone down. So like we're using a much larger size here, and we're being a little bit more polar. Anyway, we've decided to check with A7, which seems to be like, this in game to me was like a straightforward decision. Like my hand has like a fair amount of showdown, and it's not like I can value many hands at this point. Anyway, our opponent bets like B60 roughly, which is the size I used in game. So we can go ahead and look at what the turn bet strategy looks like. And we're not going to specify by size, but what we can do is just think about like, there are things that I factored in game to make my decision. One, like the B60 size. So this might be like a default type strategy for some players where like they're just using this size as like their standard delayed c-bet size. They're probably right to do that because there's likely like an overfold versus this size in this type of configuration. But I don't want to spoil like my decision here. We're going to go ahead and look at what the range composition is for the in-position player in this bet line, or the delay c-bet line. And basically what we see is that they're betting slightly too much, but another thing that is happening is they're betting slightly too merged of a range. So there's not as many weak hands. We see like roughly as many strong hands as this bot sample, but where regs are differing in terms of range composition is like these lower pairs and then these over pairs in top pair region, like these are getting bet more often. And when I ran this solution, I went ahead, I increased the bet frequency of some of these hand classes, and yeah, we'll go ahead and compare. We'll do like a little range comparison. I'll show you what I mean. And this is why this type of tool that they've made is so powerful. It's because like you're getting like literally like information on range composition. So like, it's one thing to be familiar with frequencies that people are doing stuff at, but like you can be extremely specific with exploits as soon as you start understanding how people are splitting their ranges and like what hand classes they're bucketing into certain sizes or certain lines. So, all right. So sorry about that. If this cut out at all, I need to adjust something here. But yeah, like based on this like range composition, we see that they're betting slightly more, and then like so I've gone in and I've adjusted them like the AI solution to increase the betting frequency with some of these hands, and we can go in and see like slightly increased bet frequency, decreased check frequency, and the overpair region has increased, top pair region has stayed the same, and then we have like the underpair and second pair region. That's where we're getting more of the betting volume. And we can observe the solution for out of position versus that strategy. And yeah, we see extremely polar, like an extremely polar turn check raise strategy when we're facing this type of range composition, where we're check raising slightly more and for a much larger size, since the in-position range is a little bit too merged. So that's just one thing to note. It's kind of hard to determine these things like in game, or figure if these things are happening in game, but it's definitely very cool, or at least useful, to observe what some of the strategy is in response to them. Like in that way, like if you do have a hunch, like my opponent might be slightly too merged here, right? Like you'd understand what the, what's kind of happening, so, or like what the counter strategy would be. Anyway, we see that like a hand like A7, very much a winning call. However, like, and you know what, this is like basically giving you guys some free game. I ended up folding here. So like we see in theory is like, very much losing a significant percentage of the pot, folding here. But I just had like this hunch, basically anticipating that my opponent wouldn't reopen the action all that often on this card, and that like I also had like a timing read as well as a sizing read, where it's like, okay, they're using like just like this slightly larger size and betting very quickly. Now, could this be them like just auto delay c betting? It's possible, but I'm not exactly, I couldn't be certain at the time, so I just went with my read. I thought it'd be closer than it was, for sure. Like I thought that like A7 facing this size on the turn, like no redraw, nothing, like would likely be like winning maybe slightly, but I didn't think that it would be losing an entire big blind in like a 5 big blind pot. So anyway, that is all I have for you guys. I hope you enjoyed this analysis. If you're interested in this tool, you can go ahead and DM me on Discord or whatever, or, just look up MDA Demon. So here's the website. It's MDA Demon. You can get information on their Discord and their YouTube channel and stuff. So definitely check them out. It's a very cool tool. So anyway, I will see you guys in the next video. Hopefully the next video will be a poker vlog, like a live poker vlog. And yeah, thank you for watching.